Hi, this is Nancy McClellan with Design Inventions, and I wanted to work a little bit today with some Copic markers. I recently taught a class at my scrapbook store, Scrapmania here in Cedar Rapids, and it's using the various inks in a little different type of way. So I took the various inks and I actually placed them in these little like salad dressing containers that way, and they were on like a paper plate that was kind of like it's a palette. So I have them in different little containers here. And I kept all my ink. This is perfectly good ink. So I kept all the ink and I thought that I would kind of use it up, and I had an extra image left over here, so I thought I would use it. And how I do this, it's basically the same as watercolor. And I've taken a fine tip watercolor brush, or water, brush here. And this has been filled with Colorless blender. So it's been filled with the Colorless blender, and instead of using water, we're using this blender pen. Now this image has been stamped with Memento ink, and it is on a watercolor paper. So I'm kind of working through that process. If you don't have any type of various ink refills, just open up the lid of your marker. And if you see this, there is all kinds of really good ink that's inside these markers. And you can just use that the same way. Just dip your pen in and use that. So there's a lot of things that you can do. So the color that I'm going to start with is, I want this flower to kind of be orange-ish pink, and I have some Y15 here. And this is dried ink, but I have Colorless blender here on my, and I'm just kind of pulling some of that over to the side. Okay, now what I am going to do is going to start at the center and I'm going to move out. And I'm going to be a little cautious of not to get very far, or very close to the edges, because this could wick a little bit. And again, I am trying to achieve what I'm saying is more of a watercolor look. And to me, watercolor is kind of a loose type of feel. And, it doesn't all have to go to the edges. And so I want that type of watercolor feel. And I'm just kind of doing a little mixing in the corner there, just if I need to pull up a little more ink. And this is, like, as I said, perfectly good ink. And once this dries, I can go back and play with it. And if this were to go back out of the edges, it would be perfectly fine. It's just fine if it wicks out a little bit. But I'm going to go all the way around it. This has got a lot in there. I don't want to squeeze much. I am going to go down in here, and this is going to get a little redder. I need to put a little more ink, so I'm actually squeezing my pen over here to the side. Don't want to squeeze it over my work surface, because that would give a big blob. But I need a little bit more, since I am dealing with a kind of a dry palette. During the class, this was like a liquid. I just kind of squirted some of the liquid in, and it will dry because it's alcohol ink, and it's going to dry up a little bit. But as I said, this is perfectly good ink. I kept all the containers, have the little lids for them, and I just marked on the top what they were. So a fun little technique to do, and use your inks or just clean out your marker tips. Okay, so I've pretty much got this colored with the yellow. Now what I am going to do is, I have YRO2 in here, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that and just bring in a little bit of that peach. It's going to turn kind of peachy corally, and I'm going to just kind of scribble that in there. So I'm just barely putting some of that in. So I want a little bit more there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, I have some RV14, and this is going to be pretty red, and it's going to be pretty prominent. But what I'm going to do is I'm just adding a little bit of that red tone. I just want a little bit of that coral. And again, I am just going in here with just some really, you know, squishy, kind of free, loosey-goosey type of strokes, okay? So I got a little strong there, but I can kind of push some of that out, okay? If I think that I need to go back in and blend just a little bit of this, I can come in here with this YR02 again, but I don't want it to get real brown, okay? So there's that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my leaves. And again, I sometimes like, you know, a little bit of odd, kind of strange colors, but I have a G21 in here. And so G21, and again, I'm just kind of doing a very loose type of feel, okay? And I'm gonna go around and place some of this ink on all of these leaves. Just kind of spread it around. You can see how little it takes to make this process work of the ink. But that's my first color, okay? So then I have a little bit of YG25. And again, that's yellow, where the G21 wasn't very yellow. But I'm just kind of loosening some of that up. I want to blend some of these colors. I want to have a little different look, okay? So you can see that I'm getting a little bit of this and just kind of coming up in these little nooks and crannies that I didn't have any color before. So this is getting a little bit of yellow. So my leaves are becoming a little more of a two-tone type of look there. Okay. So I work my way around. Okay. Okay. Now I do have a YG63, which is a little more depth of color, and I'm probably not going to want a lot of that in here, but I'm just kind of bringing some of that up. Kind of get some of that off my pen. And again, I can go down in here and just place a little bit of that where they would be a little bit closer to the actual flower, where they might be a tad bit darker. And when you're doing this technique, there is nothing that says you can't go ahead and bring a marker back to the, you know, to the image. Okay, so I have that. Now, the last one that I have is I have YG93, and you know, that's going to be a kind of a yellowy type of color, a little bit in the gray tones, and I'm just adding a little bit of definition there. And if you can see it, it kind of comes out with a little bit of a brown tone, but it changes the dynamic of the leaf, and that's what I really like about adding this color into the mix. Go up here and I can grab some of this up in here that I really haven't gotten. A little bit more, and I'm going to pop it up into this corner here, and that's probably going to wick a little bit, but that's okay. I need to consider, and look, looking at this image, I hadn't even gotten anything into that little spot there. So it kind of helps you define some of the areas that you've got. So I've gone around the flower. Now, I personally am fine with the way this looks. I'm okay if I don't go all the way to the edges, because to me, that's kind of what the watercolor should look like. So as you can see, that's a very fast type of approach to add something. I do see that maybe there's a little bit that I could do right on this one corner down here, and that's right there, and that's just adding a little bit of yellow. Okay, so there, that's finished. I've finished that image. Doesn't seem like it's too wet. Now I do have an R14, and I can go back in here with my R14 and just add a little bit of definition with some dots. And that's just kind of adding some texture to it there. Okay. And the other thing that I think I will do is I have a Wink of Stella, which is a clear Wink of Stella pen, and I'm just going to scribble a little bit in the center just to give that a little bit of life. Okay, so my coloring is done. I have a panel here, which is a just a dry emboss panel here. It's got just a basic little zigzag pattern. I'm going to use this as the back side. This is, I think it's a Sizzix folder, but we're just going to place this on my card front. It's just a top fold card front, and I've pretty much going to cover the entire panel there. Okay, I have my card. I'm going to reach over here and I'm going to pick up some foam tape, okay? And I am going to cut my foam tape in half. I'm taking off both sides. If you take off both sides of the foam tape backing, you'd be surprised. You can get your foam tape to mold to the shape that you need it to be. So this piece may not be quite the way I need it to be. It's a little bigger, but I can put something on the edge of this and I can actually make my foam tape somewhat mold out there. So it's got a little bit of an overlap right there, so I want that to be not overlapped. And I have another little piece I'm just going to stick in the center here. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to place this in the center of the card with that foam tape on there, just like that. I have a little sentiment here that says amazing that was left over, and I'm just going to take some collage medium and I'm going to dot some of my glue on the back of it. This piece has been layered with some black for a shadow. And we are going to place it right here on our card. And I may go ahead and pop in a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece of foam tape. I do have a piece that's right here that could go underneath the N and just give a little bit of support underneath here. That way it does not fall down. So put a tiny little piece of tape right there. So there's my card. Fast and easy. Watercolor technique using various inks and Copic blending solution. So thanks for stopping by today.